Hello and welcome to this bonus episode of 10,000 Hours and Counting. It will be the 13th episode, and that's very fitting because I'm here with my friend Rena to talk about the divine feminine. And this is deeply associated with the number 13, which we'll hop into in a moment during our chat. But here we are. Welcome, Rena. Rena and I have a beautiful history of connecting across the globe and holding space together. And it's just a joy that she was able to join me for this divine feminine centered chat. Rena, hi. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's so beautiful to be here with you.
So I sent you a little email and I just sort of said, can we chat about the divine feminine energy, how you connect to that energy, how it connects with you, how it shows up in your life, and also how it would support your inner masculine. Because for the purposes of this talk, we were saying all humans have a feminine and masculine energy within them. This is the yin and the yang. It's not about the sexuality that you identify with. It's the flow of energy, and one does not exist without the other. But sometimes there can be an imbalance or a disharmony between the two. And so, what does this mean for us as human beings, spiritual beings?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's such there's so many different areas that you can start, so many different parts of this conversation that you can start it with. But I think what really struck me when you were just talking was the balance of yin and yang, and what that means. Like, what is yin energy? What is yang energy? And so I think for me, what I've really started to understand is that not only within me, I have my yin and yang energy, I also have these unhealthy aspects of my yin and yang energy. And so it's been very interesting to decipher between all of that. But I think really when I'm in my yin energy, it's usually when I'm in this flow in my body where I'm moving, where I'm not forcing anything, I'm not pushing anything, I'm moving with my day. Perhaps it's my routine, perhaps it's a day off, but I'm moving with this kind of alignment and harmony with some force within me. And it's not even forceful. It's like this energy within me that's moving. And I feel it, like I'll feel it when I'm moving through the grocery store, and I'm not rushing, or I'm not pushing or forcing to get through my list. I'm just really present with what I'm doing, enjoying what I'm doing, paying attention, perhaps you know, and I think when I know I'm in that is when people are really receptive to me, and people are smiling at me, or moving out of the way, or sensing me before I'm even around them, or looking at me, and I'm ooh, and I can always sense that in public. So I'm oh, I'm really in my yin energy right now. It's just very in my flow, if that makes sense. I'm sure you can elaborate on that, Laura.
No, this is beautiful. And that's what I was thinking. You talked about the body, about feeling it in your body, and the
Right.
idea of being present. Because, as humans, we're not present. Put aside technology, just in our own mind, you're thinking about what happened yesterday or maybe what's in the future. And being present is such an important spiritual gift and one of the teaching principles. And yet it can be very hard for us with the sort of thinking mind, the Buddhists call it the monkey mind, to be
Well, it's
present.
like the grocery list too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're getting through the grocery store, and you're trying to get through your list, or you're trying to think about what you have to make when you get home with that grocery list. Very often I feel like the grocery store is a place in which we're really just rushing to get it done, to get through the line to. So it's funny that that came up. I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's a difference when you're just trying to cross off everything on your list and get through it, versus moving with this inner fluidity that really does create an energy around you.
And the energy you talk about too, it's like that attraction. People are attracted to the energy, the frequency you're giving off. And this is a sort of a beautiful feminine yin quality. We're not talking about just beauty as a superficial thing, but about someone's heart energy that is loving and kind and compassionate. And if you think about your day, I love that you're using the grocery store analogy because that is a regular,
Yeah.
that is an everyday thing, right? So we're spiritual and we're also human, and we can't just be meditating, 24/7 or whatever. We need to do our things. I've talked about this before. I say it's like the story of the sage who goes up the mountain and meditates for whatever 70 days and comes back down. And the first thing he does is get irritated by a villager and cuff the villager on the back of the head. You're like, is that enlightenment? Do you know what I mean? So we have to bring, is it? We have to bring enlightenment to our daily life and our daily tasks. And that is exactly what you've been saying. Instead of rushing through it and being in the head, and you maybe don't even notice anything, smiling at someone at the grocery clerk or handing someone something over their trolley, or being kind and having those human connections is a beautiful way to connect you, I would say, to the divine feminine energy of, I guess, loving compassion and awareness of other people. So it is
Mhm.
important, and following that flow. Yeah. I was thinking when you were saying too, how I connect with the divine feminine, and I feel like when I'm in more of my masculine energy, you talked about the different aspects of yin and yang. If I get too caught up in my thinking mind, that can be the unhelpful qualities of the masculine, and the body is what brings me into the moment and sort of into understanding what I'm feeling, if it's grief or if it's something beautiful. And so I think that pulling your awareness into the physical body is really important, instead of just, yeah, being out everywhere else distracted. Even if you're distracted by spirit, it needs to be a marriage of body, matter, spirit.
Yeah. Yes, it's true. Um, yeah, so I think what we're talking about is that feeling of it, like what cultivates that feeling. I guess like some of the actions that I take to cultivate that yin energy, to nurture that yin energy, or to be in my yin energy, they're usually things that have like being in nature, being in the ocean, being on the grass, doing yoga, um, even going on like a brisk like walk, or walking like a meditative walk. It's like these things that like bring me into my body. I'm aware of my environment, but it's also like moving with kind of this like reverence of myself and life.
Mhm.
So I think those are some of the actions I take. And then how I notice it is like, oh, oh wow, I'm really embodying this feeling of yin
Yeah.
within me in a healthy um and in a healthy way that's like I can see is like radiating out from me and positively impacting those around me.
Mm. Embodiment is such a beautiful term. I'm glad you brought that up, because I almost feel like when you've got embodiment of the wisdom or the lessons or your beliefs, that would almost be a balanced platform of your inner masculine and feminine. I feel like they'd be in harmony, sort of, because you go through the challenges or the integrations, and then it's not about you doing anything, as you say, to others or saying anything in particular. It's just your presence. And then that's a frequency that comes from you. So it's about that sort of peace and harmony. And I love to think of the divine feminine, divine masculine as the qualities, not the sort of presenting ones you might think, where femininity is all softness and everything, but where it might be really beautiful strength. You know what I mean? Unyielding strength, but not cold and hard. And then masculine energy, which can be about, focused and doing in the world. But what about the aspect of it that's nurturing, and that's got a softness? So I almost like to think of them as taking off those human terms of them and flipping it into what the divine would be, where it's both sides of the coin. They both offer you, but we often, by seeing role models or different things that seem toxic, or we don't trust parts of ourselves, we cut off from that truth that there is beauty within all of it. And I think at any given time, you'd be displaying certain qualities a little bit more than another, or digging deep. You'd be changing, turning up the volume or turning it down, sort of naturally, and not fighting it. So there is something about your own process, I think, and what you need in any given
Mm.
moment.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's the trial and error. It's like learning from, hearing what others have to say about it, but then coming back to yourself and like experimenting. Okay, what does the feminine feel like in my body? Is
Mm,
it, what this person just said, or is it something completely different? And then what does like yang feel like in my body? And um, I think that can vary, person to person, but I think there are like universal qualities, such as, that yin energy being that fluid energy, um, and then that yang energy being that like holding energy. It's interesting.
There's something you said about the holding. It sort of thinks to me like it activates the anchor. So in a way that the masculine could anchor any of what the feminine needs to do to blossom and to bloom. There's definitely something about that dance. And one thing I've always admired about you
Mm.
is your ability with your body to really sense your body's yeses and nos to things. And I know you've always been good at, boundaries and like taking time, like, I need to rest now because so many people just go, go, go. And we're both Taurians, and so I know that I have those qualities. But Rena has always given me like an inspiration of, yes, let the body, let that dance. Yeah, sure, I could do that, do this, do that, but let the body, and rest. So, how would you say your body kind of signals to you, I guess, the beauty, both when you have like, you need more divine feminine, or when you're, I think you've really said this, but when you're sort of ripe with it and when you're like depleted from life, so the body sort of speaks to you. I mean, how does that work with you and your awareness of that?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Like, I think how I'm sensing how I want to start off this like answer is Laura and I, when we used to work together, working for, a renowned spiritual teacher and author and oracle deck creator, um, that was a really like very focused yin period in my life where we were working remotely together, you in Australia, me here in Hawaii. We were working together, hosting events, doing administration work, eh, keeping, helping host online communities. And for me, I was spending a lot of time at home, like a lot of time meditating, a lot of time within my own energy. And excuse me, that was about a year and a half ago. And when I look at that period of my life, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was like a yin energy time where I was spending a lot of my time in yin energy. Um, and it's really interesting to see how like a year and a half later, I'm like coming into more yang energy, and that yin energy that I spent years developing and really spending a lot of time in is now creating a foundation for me to have a healthy yang energy.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think it's going to vary for each person. And then I think it's also going to evolve over years with us. And we see this time when it's like, oh, wow, that was like a time I was building my yin energy. This is a time I'm building my yang energy. And then I think they start to marry. And in my life right now, I'm really feeling that marriage, that sacred marriage and sacred union happen where I'm like, I can really throughout the week feel the teeter totter of my yin and yang energy, but like it didn't start off like that. And so now I can course correct. I can even go like a little bit longer than I would have been able to go um before I feel that imbalance, or how do I want to say this? Like I can course correct and rebalance my energy. And usually how I do that is by being in my own energy, meditating, reading, journaling, exercising, or doing yoga or some type of dance or meditative practice within my body. And then sleep. I think sleep is one of the biggest tools to help me come back to balance.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because it is about giving the body that actual rest. And when you're working with spiritual energies, that's even more intense sometimes. It might not seem that way, but on the body, the electrical impulses of that does need time for it to integrate and harmonize with the flesh. We're in a time on earth where we're moving more into the
Yes.
crystalline body. We know that, but we're doing it now. So it's a bit like being pulled backwards through a hedge. Like it
Yeah.
can be tough on the physical system. Did you like that?
Ouch, 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 ouch.
Coming out like a cat that's been, all hair everywhere. So I think that
Yeah.
giving your body the care that you can is so important. And also, what I've noticed this year with clients and also some friends and myself is sometimes it's been hard to give the body the level of care you want because of maybe some physical mini ailments or different things where the rest is not quite the same, but it's a bit like you have to keep applying it and giving yourself that time, like you would to a child. If in a way you're giving yourself the time to receive until you can again, but it's no good going, well, I can't rest the way I used to, so I just won't rest at all anymore. You have to sort of,
Right.
like putting a child not on a timeout, but being like, it's bedtime now, like just lie down or be quiet. And if your mind wants to jump around, and process things, be a little bit lovingly firm with it and just try to focus on something, and not just let your mind or your body do exactly what they want. Just sort of bringing that energy of spirit to hold the space of peace, because otherwise you'll run yourself ragged, is basically what I've been
Yeah.
hearing and seeing and finding myself. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely discipline to taking that time to like do what you know you need to do, which is sometimes just be, sometimes do
Yeah,
nothing, sometimes be on the grass,
that's the
sometimes
best
just reading a
medicine.
book. Oh
That
my gosh, it is.
and with the divine feminine, and I like the idea of thinking of the strength of it, and we think about different goddess energies, and we both personally work with the goddesses and also in our other work. And one of the goddesses that connected us so strongly is goddess Kali. And I remember at the time when we were most working with her, she was a goddess that I had not really, I knew of her but just hadn't connected with as much in my work. And we were first tuning in, and I'm sort of sharing this
Mm,
story to say, personalize your connection to the divine feminine. And everybody had
mm.
different visions and energies of Kali. And I was like, I just get blue. All I get is that deep, dark blue of her skin. I don't know. I don't know. So I thought, that's okay. I'll just be kind to myself. I'm getting blue. That's something. And I did the work with her. And then at the end of that
And it was a
period,
big eye too,
it was
right? You
like,
saw a
yeah,
big
then it
eye.
was like it was like blue and like this eye, like winking at me, like, hey. And I was like, but I can't see you. And then I realized at the end of the process, it was like she was with me so much in that particular year too. She was so big. It was like I'd been staring into her calf, kind of the dark blue.
Yeah.
She was just holding the space for me. And I'd been slightly judging myself, going, oh, other people are having these different experiences. But I felt her so strongly. And like you were saying, I just felt like the holding of that being, and some people think she's too strong. And for me, I was just like, whatever that strength is, like just bring all that clear, use your energy, Carly, and clear me of whatever I don't need. And it was something about that absolute unyielding strength that would overcome anything
Mm.
negative or obstructing within or around you, that I found to be so comforting and is a divine feminine energy. It is that. And so I like to think about that strength. It's not just about sort of all the beauty of that goddess energy and the light. It is about lightness, but it's also about an unyielding part that would say, for example, certain things, we do not tolerate that. And so it's very strong and protective, really, in that way. And so I think that's
Oh
important.
my gosh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what you would say about the goddess energy or what you wanted to sort of share. I can just sort of feel that energy.
Yes. Oh my gosh, me too. I can really feel that energy. To kind of talk to what you were saying about goddess energy, divine feminine energy. Obviously, the mother archetype is part of this. Is a huge aspect of divine feminine energy. Is that ability to birth and also that ability to take away life. And like we were kind of talking earlier about like more of this like graceful fluidity, this like radiant divine feminine energy. It is also fucking fierce.
This
And
is it.
that's that aspect of Kali Ma. And when I was working in my um towards my religion degree, I was working with a Taoist expert and I was looking into some Taoist scripts. And what really took me by surprise was how the the Chinese symbol of feminine energy and power was over time um, misinterpreted as weak. When
Hmm.
in reality, divine feminine energy is strength, it's power, it's what births humans into the world, into the planet. It's what births new universes into existence. And you can have that softness, and you can also have that massive strength. And there's no weakness in that.
Mm-mm,
Like that doesn't mean, just because you're soft doesn't mean you're weak. Like, to be soft and compassionate, especially in the current affairs of life right now, is actually a characteristic of someone who's really worked on themselves and excuse me, and can stay centered amidst the chaos that we're witnessing
mm,
around the world.
mm. It's
And
deep
so
strength.
it's very deep strength. And to call that weak because it's soft is not compute. Like, that's not what it equals. That's not the same thing.
Mm,
And I think Kali Ma is such a great symbol of this
mm.
strength. And I remember the first time I ever connected with her, like, I was actually connecting with Durga, and I was meditating with Durga. And all of a sudden I saw this, in my mind's eye, I saw this tear coming through, and then I saw this bubble, and I was like, who is born from Durga's third eye? And I kid you not, I Googled it, and that is how I found Kali Ma, because in Hindu mythology, Kali is born from Durga's third eye to eliminate all the demons that are overtaking the world in Hindu mythology. And like, that was that was my first experience with her. So I just felt like I was initiated into meeting her. And for that reason, I was never scared of her, because I was like, oh my God, this like fierce divine being is on my side. And then, like, anytime I felt like I needed to like clear the energy, or if there were any negative energies around me, anytime I called through Kali Ma, she would come in this fierce form that was super just distorted and ugly and fierce, but it was never towards me. It was
Mm,
always towards anything around me that was trying to interfere, any negative energies or anything. And she would just like go around my space and like clear. And she still does till this day. Anytime I call her in and ask for that, that fierceness is just like I'm glad I'm not on the outside looking at her. Like, I'm glad she's on my side doing that, because it would be terrifying. And so I think one of the reasons that we can, I think, when we're truly purely trying to connect with divine beings from a pure space of like genuine authentic love, and I think that's what we start to feel from those beings as well, if that makes sense. I'm
and
not saying
thank
I'm
you.
always in a pure, authentic space, but I'm just saying that.
It's the human journey, though. It's not the perfection. But thank you for sharing that story too, because that's what I was. Many people will know that too. But it's like, out of a great compassion, the tear of Durga was born this fierce love in order to overcome darkness. So I think that the only thing is the ego mind's probably frightened of fierce love, fierce Kali love, because the ego mind will be thinking, well, that'll be death to me and the way things are. But the truth is, it's transformation from the illusion of the ego and the sense of separation and all of that scarcity consciousness that humans can get into. And fierce love of the divine wants to free us from that and just cut away all that no longer serves. So that's right, having that beautiful energy to support you and surround you really will remind you kind of the fact that you aren't alone and that you can call on the divine to be there and hold the space for you. And as you say, that's right. If we could all just understand that, softness, gentleness is not weakness. It is the greatest
Mm-mm.
kind of strength to stand and have compassion for yourself and for others and for what's going on. Not compassion compassion does not mean allowing people to ride roughshod over you. It does not. But it means not always having to fight the fights, but also just having a sense of self and knowing when you actually
Mm.
put your energy somewhere and where it's just better to withdraw it.
Oh gosh, I think that brings up the point of boundaries.
Thank you.
Yeah. When divine feminine energy is learning that you are not a doormat to other people's bullshit.
Mm,
And that segues in perfectly from the fierce feminine energy that we're talking about. Like,
mm,
like you're not a doormat. you can be soft and compassionate and also in your power and strong.
Mm.
And you
In
can
a
do that in such,
And I was going to say, in a way, being really hard, supposedly, and protective is brittle. So that's the kind of personality or behavior that can shatter you. So being softer and being able to be open, as you say, move and flow with things doesn't mean you accept the bullshit, but actually maybe being a little bit more brittle and only in your thinking mind means maybe you'll get fooled by someone's rubbish or whatever, or you'll just, lock horns with them and unnecessarily, whereas your energy could just be back and pulled away in the yin flow.
and
So,
it can also be like, no, that's not okay.
do you know what I mean? There's
Like,
things that are
do not do that.
absolutely not okay. And we're not going to say, oh,
Yeah.
sure, you have your right to have that opinion or to do that behavior. It's like if I can move away from something that is toxic and harmful, obviously I will. I'm not going to sit in there and say that's okay. Like, that is an expression of, that's an inverted expression of, life to be wanting to control others and cause harm. So that's how the divine feminine, I would say, ignites your own strength and your love for yourself, really. It's all about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely this past year, I have had to hold my boundaries in a way I've never had to hold them before.
Okay.
And I think that was like testing me in a way where
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, wow, like I can hold my boundaries as a strong woman and
Mm-hmm.
still be respected and not,
Mm.
and hold the space where I'm not a bitch because I spoke up for myself. Because I
Mm.
think we see this so I think we see this so much in society where it's like if a man does it and if he's mean and yelling at people, he's a beast.
Mm.
Whereas if a woman's doing it, she's a bitch.
Mm.
So one has like a positive connotation and one has like a negative connotation. And I think a woman in her power who knows her worth and holds her boundaries in her feminine power as well can also do it in a way that it's like, I'm not a bitch. I'm holding my sovereignty, my sovereign power, if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yes, it is about sovereignty. That's exactly right. And we were
Yeah.
talking earlier about the significance of the 13, the number 13, and how historically it actually has this connection to the divine feminine. And maybe you can share a bit about that. And then we were talking about the way, life and society has inverted it to now a bad luck number that certain hotels don't even have a 13th floor. And I laughed and I said to you, oh, no wonder it's a bad luck number. It's associated with the feminine. So did we just want to swoosh that away? But did you want to share a bit because of, your degree and the different historical things you've worked with goddess energies, what you said about the 13th and why we can all take off that label of ooh, the 13th and the bad luck and come into that divine feminine mystery school of that a little bit more.
Mm. Yeah, I think like 13, women usually have around 13, 28-day cycles throughout the year. And then that's also associated with the moon. And in those two associations, we see how women, the body, are part of the natural world.
Mm.
And they're one with each other. They're fluidly moving in a rhythm that you can witness
Mm.
and that as women, we feel directly connected to that because we have those cycles, those 28-day cycles. And so 13 was this divine feminine number. It was associated with the natural world. And as we saw the progression of through the Middle Ages, as the body in the Roman Catholic Church and Catholicism and Christianity started to really get a bad rap. It was seen as something to overcome. It was seen as sin. This divine feminine was associated with it and therefore seen as sin as well. And it was degraded and something that was something to be overcome, like mind over matter,
Mm.
making sure you you don't fall, victim to the sins of the body, the lust of the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really like demonized.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, you know, long story short, why our planet is um in a state in which we need to pay attention to it and nurture it back to health and prioritize it as a natural commodity that is our home and that
Mm.
can run out if we don't take care of it. And that kind of like brings it back to like taking care of our bodies and learning how that's connected,
Mm.
you know. Um, it's really interesting how we've become so separated from that. And I think when we
Yeah.
start to come back into it, we realize like how separated people are from their bodies and the cycles and natural rhythms of nature and how that's connected um, to every aspect of our life.
Yeah. And you have this one body, this aspect of us, this soul, it only gets this one body. I mean, I believe in reincarnation and all the many past lives and future lives, but this body is the only one you'll get now, this time with this particular personality. And so you want to work with that, you want to honor that. We talk about the fact that, everybody comes from the stars. And so your soul answered a call, which was the call of Earth's heart, Mother Earth, to come here. But to be here, you needed that physical vehicle. So it is something quite sacred. And it is important that you find a way to honor, whether you're male or female, but to honor your physical body. And as you say, people are split now. And it's like if you can't connect to nature and you can't connect to your own body, no wonder you're split, because those two things are what are here anchoring us on earth so that we can bring more spiritual light to the material. If we were just all spirit floating around here, it would be a very different thing. But it wouldn't be the
Sounds
same.
a lot lighter.
That's the experiment.
It is the experiment. It is the experiment. And it's funny you say experiment because I was like literally thinking about like how like, gosh, I'm just still such a student of this. Like I'm still learning, like my body's still learning how to do this and I'm still learning how to honor my body. And
Mm.
yeah, it's kind
I
of
think
like the name of your
that's
podcast.
and I think it's that spiral effect, as we said before. That's why I was inspired to start this podcast, to the journey, because it's never ending. It's always unfolding. And sometimes, I said to Rena at the beginning, this seems to me to one of the main journeys or experiences on life, the spiritual path, where often you feel you're going backwards instead of going
Yes.
forwards. And that is part of it, but you're never actually going backwards. You're spiraling around to have it from another perspective or to learn more. But it
Yeah.
can be debilitating if you don't understand that and you think that everything is A, B, C, D, go forward. So the feminine way says now it's rest, and the feminine way will guide you how to take care of yourself and how to listen to your spirit. And then the divine masculine can help you action things in the world and also hold the space for you to have good boundaries. You were talking about that before. A balanced masculine would have the boundary to say no and not with a harshness. So it's about allowing yourself to have your space, I think, in the world. And I would encourage people to look for the magic, to empower themselves with the numerology of 13, because it is sort of a mystery school number. It's a little bit like the priestess or the initiate. It's about that going within and finding what you need, the resources within. So I think the advice is question things. Don't just take collective wisdom, and start looking for meaning in these things, and try to find a path for you inside all of the chaos, because the more of us that switch on our integrity and our hearts and our light and do things seemingly gently, as you're saying, that's going to affect more change than trying to fight systems and trying to argue our point and get it across with people, because at the end of the day, those kinds of things are just a hard, brittle energy that doesn't help anybody. You can play devil's advocate, and what's the point of that? We don't want to get stuck in that thinking mind, ego mind game.
Yeah, I think it really does. I think a lot of us here in uh America, the United States, I think yeah, there's a real polarity between people that feel like we're regressing and then people that feel like we're truly moving forward. Um, it's really interesting. And so I like what you reminding all of us that, we're never actually regressing. Like it may feel like a step back, but like we are just going on the spiral of evolution upward. And we never return to the same thing twice
Mm,
as the same exact person. Like if
mm,
we're returning to something, it's because we're returning to that with a new awareness, a new consciousness, um, a new level of embodiment. And
mm.
I've really felt that.
Yeah. And it's about bringing more spiritual light to everything. And I know that I know that many people believe too and know that things are getting better, but often they have to get worse for all the muck to come up and be seen and witnessed. But when you are a spiritual practitioner, and I use that term meaning if you're on your path and you believe and you do things for yourself, whether you share it or not with others, but you're a spiritual being, then you have to know that bringing in more light, that there are more possibilities and solutions that exist, and that bringing divine energy through your body into the earth allows more divine presence to create these miraculous solutions that takes away just the humaning level of it and creates this sort of new way of being on earth, with compassion and harmony. So if we can just not sort of look what's out there and let ourselves be taken down by what we're seeing,
Yeah.
and feel within for truths, or even just pray, for truths. But I do think when you get quiet and you're meditating or you're in nature, hope sort of springs from within. There is always that hope that can never be killed off when you stop all the out or the input and you just come within, and it's between you and spirit or nature. There will be a part of you that feels into that mystery, the inexplicable nature of the soul, and knows that it doesn't have to just be this external world that we see, that we can create something better from our hearts and our spiritual belief systems. If, as you're saying, we embody them and we don't just make them concepts, we actually practice what we preach, practice what we believe.
Yeah, taking what we've learned off the mat, what they say in yoga. And I think you can even do that like your practices in nature, your practices alone, your practices in meditation, where you're connecting to that mystery is really important. But I think you can call on that anywhere, even amidst, super busy room. And you can call on that through your breath, coming back to your breath and like, oh, that mystery is right there. Like it is always just a breath away. And when you take that moment and you take that breath, especially if you want to react to something, I think that's the strength that we're talking about. That's the the marriage of the divine masculine and feminine where you're holding that space. Um and coming back to the breath. I feel like that's for me, that's always it's always the practice,
Yeah.
especially like if I'm at work and it's super busy and yeah, maybe my nervous system is in fight or flight because it's just so busy. Um, I just like take that breath. And as soon as I take that breath, it's like with that intention to like return back to that that center, that primordial spaciousness beneath all phenomena. It's all of a sudden the magic is there again, and I can
Mm,
see it and I can tune into it even amidst the chaos.
mm.
And when I've been able to do that and I've been able to hold my ground and do that and come back to my breath, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah. And you said it at the beginning, it is the presence. It's being in the present moment and through the breath. It doesn't
Yes.
help you if you can only be centered and compassionate when you're in your yoga studio or you're in your meditation room. We need to bring it into everyday life. And that is what we're talking about, being present. And even being present to things that feel uncomfortable for you, but facing it with an
Yeah.
equanimity and a peace, it is. So being present, and the divine feminine will help you with that, because it's so organic, that energy, and immediate, sort of like I talked about this idea with Rena, and it's all happened. We're doing this to get it's just come together. And that's my key. I know the divine feminine is involved. Things just push happen. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
surrendering.
Fluidly, easily.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. I really have been feeling that a lot lately too. Just I've been going through a lot of transition with like cars and home and all these things. And when I'm like, oh my God, it's not working out. I just like surrender. And
Mm.
then it's like that force of life just takes over and does it for me. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just am here to witness it and be here and enjoy it as much as I can and shine my light as much as I can while I'm like experiencing this.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's a beautiful way, actually. I'm going to wrap up, but I wanted to ask you anything else you want to share, but you've hit all the spiritual nails on the head.
Yeah. I feel like we have perfectly. We always do.
It's the beautiful flow and it's the conversation. And I love that, just sharing that experience. But that's what we wanted to sort of work with, the 13 and the mystery and the magic of that and the empowerment of your own feminine flow and how you work with that energy and not denigrating it or allowing it to be denigrated by others. It's powerful. And what you said before, Rena, life wouldn't exist without the feminine in any way. And so it's a little bit like thinking of it, getting a visual of a bird instead of flying with both of its wings in harmony. If one wing is the masculine and one is the feminine, and old thinking sort of says tape down that feminine arm because it's no good. So you just be flapping with one arm, just using one kind of energy to get things done in the world. That bird's not going to get very far. So if we can all accept we look for balance and harmony and coming together and just ways to create harmony, regardless of the big issues. If we start small with those grassroots, that's really going to make, we're like all drops in the same ocean, and that ocean of consciousness and awareness is lit by bigger forces, way bigger than us, spiritual energy forces. So if we can surrender to those things and trust the process of this incredible cleansing, hold fast to your heart, hold fast to the people you love, and we will get through that and into another way. But embrace your inner feminine, embrace the divine feminine, the mystery and the magic. It makes life so much more rich.
Oh, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for you, Laura, because you're always just so much fun to share the magic with and ponder on these mysterious ways of life that just can be very puzzling at times and laughing through it.
Well, we share a very special bond, and I feel it's so fitting that you were here for the final bonus edition. It's a joy to speak with you, Rena. And yeah, we've been through so many aspects and things together. And it's important to acknowledge the people in your life that we've never been in the same room physically, but
I
we have
know.
shared so much on so many levels. And so acknowledge those people, that you love, that you just vibe with. We once connected through the eye symbol for Ra, right? The intuition and the
Oh, Horace.
Horus, because Ra is okay. I'll talk to Natalie about the
Yeah.
Ra.
Yeah, yeah.
But just honor the
The Eye
people
of
in your
Horus.
life who get you, and who get the
Yeah.
spiritual part, and keep trusting in your spiritual path. Always keep like bringing your focus back to that when things seem too much. Go back to what you know and believe and follow, and it's as simple as that. Well, it's not that simple, but it is the key. Walk the talk, embody the light, embrace your
Mm.
inner feminine flow.
And so it is.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Have a beautiful end to the year. Blessing you with this energy of the 13th, and may you honor it however it works for you and your soul. And Rena, so much love to you and gratitude
Aw.
across the ocean, across the world. And we will be back. I'll be sharing more musings and hopefully conversations from my heart with my beloved friends as we move forward into a new year. So, from the 10,000 hours and counting platform now, goodbye and enjoy the rest of the year. Lots of love. Bye.